Hello everyone and welcome to our first episode of Good Talk. My name is Bernice Bernales, your host. Now in this series, this is where we bring youth a different perspective on various mental health issues. And today's topic, we'll be talking about anxiety. Now I'm very lucky to have here over with me to discuss this topic on anxiety, a clinical psychologist, Dr. Annabelle Chow. Dr. Annabelle, welcome.
Hi Bernice, and thank you all for having me today.
In psychology, there's different sort of fields, right? So what are your specializations?
So I'm a clinical psychologist and then I specialize in personality disorders and traumas. So any kind of like childhood traumas, any kind of like maybe parental neglect or abuse, all of that has a significant impact on the child and how they grow up and how they see the world.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like my area of interest.
There was this research that I saw where basically it said that in Singapore, 1 in 3 youths tend to like mask or like they tend to internalize mental health symptoms, and one of them being anxiety. Do you think because of the way our culture is built, or like maybe our fast-paced environment, there's a lot more youths who face anxiety?
So I suppose most definitely there's the nature and the nurture component. So your nurture would be like how your parents parent you, how your environment is supportive or not, how your school is, how your friends are, things like that. So if you live in an environment that is like fast-paced, high stress, everyone is super high functioning, everyone's very competitive, then you would expect that you would naturally become more anxious as a result of that. So yes, I do think that our environment is probably a bit like it's probably an environment that cooks up a lot of that anxiety. Having to survive and in a rat race in that sense.
Yeah, to just get into it, right? What is the definition of anxiety? I feel like this word has like been spread across all over the internet. So maybe share with me.
So I suppose anxiety is really a feeling that your body is telling you that something is not really aligned with you. And more often than not, it actually tells you that there's some kind of danger or some kind of crisis, something that makes you very uncomfortable. So in olden times, that might be like a big animal charging at you, and then you might feel anxious or you might feel a lot of fear, and then you have to decide whether you're going to fight, flight, or freeze. In modern times, we don't see bears every day.
Nope, we don't. We see boars though. We see boars and horses in Singapore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in modern times, it'll probably be like, in a form of a podcast or a video, like being in front of a camera, being in front of like an audience is like quite anxiety provoking because a lot of things can go wrong, right?
Yeah.
You can say the wrong thing, or you will feel like, oh my God, is somebody judging me? Definitely all the thoughts coming through your mind, oh my God, what if I say something wrong? Yeah, so then this causes the anxiety and it informs the behavior of like fight, flight, or freeze.
Oh, flight, fright, or freeze, okay.
Fight, flight, or freeze.
Fight, flight, or freeze, okay. When we were talking about it, right, thinking about how a lot of us on social media, there's a lot of like quick grabby titles like, if you do these 5 things, you may have anxiety. And because I think of that mislabeling or like that sort of thing, it brings a lot of people to like think that, oh, maybe I do have anxiety. How does that really like affect this sort of industry, I would ask?
I think it will make them more anxious, right?
Yeah.
So if they only had like normal anxiety, it might become heightened anxiety and then it might have an impact on the way that they function. So I think like sharing accurate information is quite important. So maybe most importantly for youths, when you're reading up or even when you're looking at TikTok and social media about information about this, and the truth is most of the time you will take some, if not all, of the symptoms. But just be mindful of the source, who is saying these things and whether the source is credible. Even if you're reading an article online, just check the source.
Something I want to know a bit more is, what else does anxiety do to us?
So like very common things would be like sweating, heart palpitations, shortness of breath. You might feel like you have clammy hands, or you might feel like tightness of chest. You might feel very dizzy or nauseated. Or other common symptoms might be like gastro problems like indigestion, nausea, feeling like you're going to vomit, or even like just feeling like a lot of knots, like butterflies in your tummy. Or even like people would say that I have to go to the toilet very regularly, and they may have diarrhea. These physical symptoms are actually really normal, And sometimes, unfortunately, when we are not aware that these can be symptoms of anxiety, we might just get really concerned that something wrong is happening with our body. Like, oftentimes a lot of my patients will say, I've gone to a cardiologist because I had heart pain. Or like I had shortness of breath, so I've gone to check my lungs because there must be something wrong with my body. So they will go to medical doctors to get them checked out. And if they've gone many rounds and all the medical checks are clear, it is really highly suggestive that it is really a symptom of anxiety.
So the anxiety disorder in this case?
Yes.
What are some other ways that you recommend to your clients or even to our listeners over here today as to how they can manage their anxiety?
So what I always recommend is if you cannot change the environment, and most of the time we can't, right? We have no control. Then we want to kind of look inward to see what we can change. And if we can change the things that are within our area of control, then we will feel a little bit more empowered and a little bit more confident and probably less anxious in the process. And probably the other two things that I would add on is, one is to make some space for your emotions.
Okay.
So don't suppress them, because if you suppress them, I promise you they will come up. It's like now or later, and if it comes out later, it might be in a more messy form. So like an analogy I often offer would be like, imagine a pressure cooker. Do you know how to use a pressure cooker?
Yes, I do know how to use a pressure cooker. Yes.
Yeah, so you put all your like different food and vegetables inside, you cover the lid. If you don't watch the pressure cooker, you just let it keep cooking. And when you eventually open,
it's just gonna...
it's mush. Right? You don't actually know this is beef or this is lamb because they all just look the same. And it's just mush, right? And sometimes that's what my youths tell me. Like, I don't know why, but I had dinner with my parents, and then I told them I wanted barley, but in the end they got me water chestnut, and then I just had a meltdown. And like that was nothing to have a meltdown about. And then my parents got angry, and then I was confused. I got upset at myself. Is something wrong with me? Am I going crazy? And I'm like, you're absolutely not going crazy. It is really just like, when you suppress a lot of things, and then something just comes in, and then it sends the lead flying, and everything that you've suppressed comes out, and you can't make sense of it.
Oh dear.
So definitely make some space for your emotions. Be curious about what it's actually trying to tell you, and pay a little bit of attention to it, give it some space. And then lastly is probably just to be a bit more aware of what your values are, and maybe try to use your values to guide you in your decision-making process.
Okay.
So, for example, if one of the values is kindness, kindness is not just being kind to other people, but kindness is also being kind to yourself.
Yes.
And if you're very, very anxious about, oh my God, I only scored 98 out of 100. And oh dear, my parents are going to be upset about the 2 points, and I'm not going to get into the next level or promoted to the level that I want, or the class or the subjects that I want. And then you feel really, really anxious, and then you feel really angry with yourself, and then you have a lot of other complicated feelings that come in. Maybe just hit a pause there and ask yourself, like, what does being kind to yourself look like now? Like, what would that mean? So being kind to yourself and learning to make decisions that are a bit more aligned with your values. A very common thing that I also recommend would be, for people with high anxiety, you can consider things like fidget toys.
How does that really help us?
Because when you're anxious, right, your body is trying to discharge a lot of the energy inside you. So sometimes I will tell people, if you can actually walk, go and walk. Walking is very therapeutic. You can drink water. Water is magic. Take a shower, take a bath, go swimming, drink water, whatever that is. Water can help. And fidgeting, like fidget cubes. If fidget cubes are taken away, there's actually a new thing called like a fidget ring.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's actually like a ring, and then part of the ring is something that you can turn. So I don't know if you've seen those, like people just keep doing this.
Oh yeah, I think I have a friend who has a ring that does that actually.
Yes. So you can get those fidget rings as well. Or like people who turn the pens and they flip the pens.
Would biting nails also be considered part of it, or like is that a bad habit?
Yes, I think you have to assess it. Not so much whether it's a bad or a good, because it's maybe more whether it's healthy or not.
Okay,
And
okay.
like how effective, like what you want for yourself in the medium and the long term.
Oh, okay.
So for example, if I bite my nails when I'm anxious, and then after that I judge my nails and be very upset with myself that I don't have nice nails, then it will kind of reinforce that vicious cycle of anxiety and anger and maybe even shame, right? Then you don't really want people to see your nails.
Yeah.
So then I would say that's not very healthy. So then you can consider looking for other options.
When it comes to when our friends or like loved ones are anxious about something, what are some ways that we can actually help them? Because I think we've all been in a situation where we feel or we see someone's like really stressed out about something, and you're just like, I don't know what to do. How do I help this person? So what do you recommend that we can do?
Really, I think the first thing is that we can really be the most helpful is just by listening, creating a safe space to just allow the person that we love to talk or not talk, and let that person know that we are there in a very non-judgmental, safe, present way. And that's probably the most impactful thing we can do.
Just being there. Just listening. Okay. And actually, before we wrap things up, Dr. Annabelle, thank you so much for coming here today. Do you have any words, final remarks from you to the audience to just share about mental health or anxiety? Yeah.
So anxiety is really, really normal, as with all feelings that we will have, right? And there's no shame in seeking help and talking to somebody about it. Just a bit like, if you've got something wrong with your body, you will go and see a GP. And if there's something like you feel is a departure from what you're comfortable with in terms of your mental health or your emotions or how you've been behaving recently, go and speak to someone you trust. Your first port may never necessarily be a psychologist, and that's okay, but you can always reach a counselor or even a teacher whom you trust. But like a trusted source, because it's really, really normal. And I also want to reinforce that you're not crazy to feel any way that you feel. And it's really, really just part of a normal human experience. And I think that the fact that you're watching this podcast or this YouTube video is suggestive that this is something that maybe either you are interested in or that you are personally struggling with this. So reach out, go and find someone that you feel safe with, and talk to that person.
Okay.
Sometimes when you talk to that person, you may not get the result that you want. Try again. It may not be about you, no, it may not be you. It may be that other person who may not have capacity or may not have the knowledge or be equipped to deal with it. Try again, find somebody else.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Annabelle, for joining us here today. And I think through the conversations we had, I really learned a lot, despite even studying psychology myself. I think learning that not all the solutions or how we manage our anxiety is going to is like a one-size-fits-all kind of situation. We have to evaluate our own level of anxiety and see whether that coping mechanism we choose does fit with it. And just like that whole fight, flight, or freeze moment, I think that really just I think that really put things into perspective as to how we react to certain types of anxiety or when we feel anxious at a moment. So really enjoyed that conversation. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, and okay, so to our audience listening to the podcast, if you enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing to the podcast here on YouTube or on Spotify at MYMCA Singapore. And you can also find us on our Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook and Discord at mymca.singapore. Thanks for being here, and we hope to catch you in our next episode where we'll talk about stress. See you next time. Bye-bye.